back from lunch. I hope you all enjoyed that. This afternoon, we're actually going to be talking about building a more robust gripper for the prosthetic arm. And I'm really excited because I have Erica Salgado here with us today. She is a student employee in our office. She's a senior working on civil engineering, currently applying to graduate school, so wish her luck. And I asked her to actually build a gripper out of cardboard. I said, let's see if it can be done. And so she did it, and then she made it out of boxwood. And she's going to basically talk about some of the basics because she just learned it. She's an expert on it, levers and all the things you need to know to build a gripper. And then after she's done, she'll stick around for a little bit while we start building our own. So if you have any questions, like physics questions or questions about construction, she's the one to ask. So welcome, Erica.
What was that?
Did you make this cardboard?
Yes.
We will make it available to you.
Thank you. Yes. Hi everyone. So the goal of this presentation was just to get you guys a basis for if you guys want to do something a little more advanced. I know in the past our students have used tongs, and a lot of students go to the competition with tongs as the grippers, which there's nothing wrong with that. It still takes a lot of skill to, you know, especially for kids to make it work and attach it to the device and all that. There's a lot more ingenuity that it takes to make it work and figure out how you're going to actuate it and all that. But this is designed if you guys want to improve on that and just build upon that, especially for kids that have already done it. So hopefully this will give you guys a little bit of a basis. So this is what I'll be talking about today. We'll go over the basics of a lever. I'll show you a gripper in detail. This is the one that I made, and it's similar to the one that I'll be showing in the example. I'll show you guys a little bit about springs. I'll talk about springs and how you can incorporate them. I'll talk about gears and how you can use gears to work it effectively, and talk about how to improve the actual gripper, this top part up here, and the different materials that you guys can use. So just some basics for the 3 points that you guys want to identify when you guys are going to start building the gripper are these 3 points. The fulcrum, where you're going to apply the effort, and the load, where it's actually going to pick it up. So the fulcrum in something like this is going to be a pivot point, and it's going to be where it attaches to the actual, to the body. Yeah, to the body, where you're going to reinforce it to the body. But this is just an example. It doesn't always have to be a pivot point. Like for tongs, for example, it's just where the end where it lays. So in this one, which is very similar to this one, the fulcrum is going to be where it's attached to the body. On this one right here, it's attached here. Every other point right here is free to move, at least in one direction. This is where it's attached to the rest of this. The effort is going to be in this direction. So on here, you can't see it very well, but to actually actuate it, there would be a string or something rigid that's going to pull this apart and actuate it. So for this one you would have to attach a string and then pull on it this way. This one, it doesn't have to be a string, but if you're going to be pulling on it to actuate it, it could be a string. If you have to push it to actuate it, it's going to have to be something rigid. These members here, this is what you're going to use to figure out how wide you want this to open. So to keep it smaller, if you guys want it to open wide, then you keep these smaller right here. But if you guys want it, if you guys want it to not open very wide, these are going to be smaller. But if you guys want it to open wider, then you adjust the length of these members. That's what's going to dictate how wide this can open. And then this bottom part here, so when I built it the first time, I was still trying to figure out how it was going to work. And I built this one here. out of cardboard first. And I realized that for this to work efficiently, this bottom piece had to be one piece. This cannot move, this bottom part, because otherwise it doesn't work as one. So this, I tried to glue it here, it didn't work, so I ended up going with plan B, and it worked out even better, so it worked out. And on this one, I just cut it out as one piece, so then I didn't have to worry about reinforcing it and not having it to move. And then this right here can only move in one direction. So for this one, we made a track. So it can only move in one direction, because if you allow this to move, it won't work symmetrically. So in this piece, you want to build a track or use gears, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Here's another example. It's very similar to this. I ended up using the two levels here to make it stronger, because it was strong in one direction. So if I was trying to pick something up, it was strong enough to grip it. But then when you try to pick it up, especially with the cardboard, it wasn't strong enough in this direction. So something that worked out for this one is just adding another layer of wood right here. So it has 2 layers, kind of like this one does. And then you can also incorporate springs into it. This one has springs, and there's 2 different kinds of springs you can use. You can use the tension springs or the compression springs. And that's going to depend on whether you want it to, on its neutral state, when it's just sitting, when you're not putting any effort on it, do you want it to be closed or do you want it to be open? This one has the compression spring, so it's actually pulling on here. So if you were to put the tension, it would be pushing on this one here, which would have it open on its natural, so on its natural state. So then you would put the effort to grab something, and then as you're putting the effort, I think while you guys were doing the beanbag toss, that's how they were. They were usually open, and you're putting in the effort to hold it and then toss it. But in this case, if you have it closed on its neutral state, you're going to put the effort when you're grabbing something, and then you're going to let go, and then you have to put the effort when you're letting go. And same thing with the compression. You could put it in the same location, and it would do it would either push it open or pull it closed. And rubber bands are also really useful because they're a type of compression spring, tension spring. And what they do is, like on this example here, it's similar to this one. What I did here is this one can be removed here, but you want to add it if you guys want to make it stronger. So if you're picking something up that doesn't require this to be so strong, you can take this off, but this is just something that makes it a little bit more flexible. So if you want to pick up something heavy, you would add this rubber band here. And so I was thinking that maybe you were wondering which one is better, to have it open or to have it closed on its neutral state. And I think that's going to be something that you want to experiment with. Maybe like trying the beanbag toss. I don't know what's going to be more efficient. I was thinking that this would be more efficient. When I was thinking about it, I was thinking it would be more efficient to pick up heavy things. I was thinking more of the use of a prosthetic device. If you're really busy and you're doing a lot of work around the house, it'd be nice to have this do the work for you when you're picking something up. And then when you're actually picking it up, you can focus on just this motion, on actually picking it up, as opposed to having to pick it up and grip it at the same time. But this is something that I think you guys should maybe talk about with your kids and see what works better for the purposes of the competition. And then to incorporate gears. Gears would be a good alternative to having a track. So if you guys want to go with the gears would make sure that it works symmetrically. So you could put the gears right in here, where you attach where you attach these members, and it would make sure that it's all working symmetrically. So it's just another alternative to building a track. It's just another thing that you guys can go with, and it might be a little bit less work. It's just another option. And then these grippers that I have here are really basic, kind of like these. That's another thing that you guys want to think of when you start building the device is, what do I want this to look like so it's grips everything that I need to grip in the competition effectively. These are some examples of different types of pliers, and they all have different types of openings. So if you look at this one, it's all thin. That would be really useful for picking up smaller things. This one here opens to the side, and if you guys wanted to go with something like that, right from the beginning, you want to cut these long arms. You want to cut it in the shape that you guys want to go with. So if you guys want to go with something that's curved, you can do it on this shape, and then when you're setting all the pieces together, that's when you could start measuring out how big you would want this piece relative to this piece, and so forth. And this one right here is more circular, so it has a small tip right here where you can pick up smaller things, but then maybe for like the 2-liter bottle, something like this, a design like this would be more effective. And these are a couple of examples that I found online, like this one has the square gripper. This one is interesting shape. I think it's probably to pick up something specific, but I'm not sure. And same thing with this one. This one's a little bit flat too, so similar to this one. And something a little bit more advanced is maybe you guys would want to go with a 3-finger design. And something that I found online that I thought was really interesting, and this is something that's actually used on some prosthetic devices, is they build the gripper, and then they think about aesthetics and they try to cover it up. So this obviously is pretty advanced, but that's something that maybe you want to talk to your kids about. Is there something that you can do to make it more just for aesthetics, thinking about aesthetics? Is there something that you can do to make it look nicer? The materials that I played with were some cardboard and some balsa wood. And the balsa wood that I used were these little flimsy pieces. And they're really strong in this direction. They won't bend in this direction. But on this direction, they're really soft. But if you cross-grain them, and I just used, what kind of glue did I used wood glue for this one. If you cross-grain them, you end up making it really strong actually pretty quickly. Even 3 pieces, you can't flex them anymore. I think I used 6 pieces for these, for each member. And I can pass this around if you guys want to take a look. Just how strong it got for just cross-graining them and gluing them together. It gets really strong really fast.
Are balsa wood sheets like that very expensive?
Tamara, you know how much this
It's not terribly expensive, and if people are interested in doing balsa wood, we can look at doing a bulk order.
The wood works pretty well too. The only thing is that I use pretty thick cardboard. I think I would recommend trying to find thinner cardboard because it gets pretty strong pretty fast too. But I wanted to make it stronger in this direction, so I actually used just 3 layers for this one. And it's strong, but it's not, I don't think it was strong enough. I think I would go with a couple more layers. And it's the same thing, if you guys ever look at cardboard, on one side it'll be flat, and on the other side it'll have these little ridges. So it also has a strong side and a weak side. And if you cross-grain them, they get pretty strong pretty quickly as well. I would recommend, thinner cardboard I think would go a long way, because if you want to add more layers to this, it's going to get pretty thick. So you guys can take a look at this one too, even though it's incomplete.
You use wood glue or what kind of glue?
For this one, I just used regular like Barnes glue, and it worked pretty well. Oh, another that I wanted to mention to you guys is it's really hard, especially for that balsa wood. It's really hard to cut once you glue them together. So I would strongly recommend you guys to have the kids cut out the shape that they want, several shapes, and then glue them together.
Because it was scissors, or did you have to use? I don't know how you use it.
How did you cut it?
I used an X-Acto knife, but it was really hard, especially for that one. Like once they were glued together, it was really hard.
Or this is
Yeah, that would be really easy to cut. I think even scissors would work. Yeah. And these are a couple examples. I went through some pictures of our Mesa kids, and they, a lot of kids have already. Oh, is that? Okay, so there you go. So a lot of kids have already started to get really creative and just try to do their own designs. So these are a few. I have a few that I want to share with you guys. So it doesn't have to look anything like that. This is just the example that I came up with, so you guys can see the different techniques that you guys can use, how you can incorporate gears and springs, but it doesn't have to look anything like this. This is just an example. It looks like he used a hinge here, and I think this one was flat here. So very creative. Here's another one where it looks like they had 3 steel circular shapes, and it looks like they used that rubber fabric that is used on the gripper.
Shelf
lining.
Yeah, shelf lining.
Yeah, like shelf lining here that made it a strong grip. This one I couldn't get a clear picture, but same kind of deal. Is I think they might have used gears in there. I'm not sure, but there's already a lot of kids that have tried to go out of the box and use different kind of things. And then this was, I didn't know I was presenting at first, so I kind of just wrote this in, but I could just show you guys. So one thing that I just wanted to make clear is that at least from my perspective, is I don't think that there's anything wrong with using tongs, and especially for the kids that are just starting out. I think the process is really about, the engineering process is about problem solving. So it's not really in problem solving, like when you're designing something like this, it's about identifying where the problems are and coming up with creative solutions, which I think there could be a lot of that when you're using tongs too, and figuring out the best way to find a gripper. But I would strongly recommend this for kids that have already done it maybe once, or any kids that are ambitious, they want to go out of the box, because it's a really good experience. I actually drew that out at first, and it ended up looking nothing like I drew, because I was like, oh wait, it's not going to work like this. I drew it in 2D, but then when I went with 3D, it was just not really working the way that I wanted to. But I think that's part of the process is, you run into these issues and then you figure out the solutions for them, and I think it's a really valuable experience for the kids. I think that's all I have. Any questions?
Is there a mechanism you can envision that would allow an arm to be switchable between normally open and normally closed?
If you can make it where the springs are, if you can make the springs to where they could detach, because that one I screwed them in, but if you want to just put them in, if you take a look at that, there's a way, you can probably just put them in and not bolt them in, then you can switch that out and put in the different type of spring. But I use 3 springs, so you would have to do it for all 3 of them and switch out the compression spring with the tension spring.
Okay.
Any other questions?
That's so awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what we're going to do today is